Now, the question we teased at the top of the broadcast is violence on social media and in the pop culture a contagion? Does it spread? So this guy in Washington on Saturday wrote this manifesto actually quoting from social media and popular culture in some of the hate Trump stuff that he put in there. It was Victor Davis Hanson as a column on a very good column, good research by the doctor. And he says, you could see it. So the guy is on there on these hate sites and taking stuff off to justify trying to kill the president of the United States. Joining us now from Stanford, California, is Dr. Anna Lembke, professor of psychiatry at Stanford, and author of the book, The Official Dopamine Nation Workbook, Practical Guide to Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence. So I don't know whether you've discussed this in your classes, doctor, but it seems to me that there is a bit of, some people call it imitation, or they get frazzled or wound up by reading all of this hate stuff. And it's not just about President Trump either, a whole bunch of other people in that. And then they act out on it. How common do you think that is?
Well, we are deeply social creatures, and we base much of our behavior on mimicry, which is to say, copying other people and what they're doing. And we've known for a long time that violence is contagious in the sense that when people see other people committing violent acts, they are more likely to commit violent acts themselves. Social media spreads these types of ideas at a very massive scale. And there's growing evidence to show that the kind of violence that people see online not only normalizes highly deviant behavior, but also induces individuals to commit similar acts of violence.
And I guess you see that with looting, right? So a few looters go out, they kick in the doors, and then everybody watches, can I get away with this? And they run in and they do the same thing. But on social media, it's protected by the First Amendment. So there's nothing anybody can do about it unless you directly threaten someone. And Kimmel has not done that to the president. But certainly he whips up hate every night on his program. But he's a small timer. His stuff gets out on social media, but not a lot of people watch it. Would you say he's a major factor in the spread of this kind of stuff?
Well, I think the issue there is that under the guise of comedy, we allow a lot of types of speech that we wouldn't allow, during sort of other types of discourse. But what's happened with comedians of late is that they've become virtually political pundits. So this line between sort of journalism, political punditry, and comedy has really blurred. And Jimmy Kimmel hides behind being a comedian when he's making hate speech, but then emerges from his comedian stance when he's making different types of political commentary. And I think that's really the issue. If you're going to be a comedian.
As a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, you just said what Kimmel is doing is hate. Now, his supporters will deny that, and he denies it himself. And so does Disney. Oh, no, this is satire. So people get confused. I mean, is it satire? Is this something normal? Should we accept this? And then what do you say to them?
No matter what he says about what his nominal role is as a comedian, the fact of the matter is that survey reports show that a growing number of Americans, especially young Americans, get their news from social media and comedians. So he is de facto a political influencer and functioning as a journalist. And so I don't think we can any longer let him hide behind the excuse of being. That's what I would say.
But he's got protections of the First Amendment and his company, Disney. He's protected because now, as I said, the talent agencies in Los Angeles have stepped up and said, don't touch him, or you Disney are going to suffer. And it's like it's a brawl. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the overwhelming power of social media now. Not just about young people. If you go to any restaurant, I'm sure you've seen this out in Stanford, Doctor, where there's a family of 5 sitting around and don't talk to each other. They're all on the phone until their entree comes. Even then they eat and then they're looking at the phone. And it's almost, I know you're an expert in addiction on the social media thing, but when you are spending so much time and investing in the information that you can't possibly, confirm, that's got to do damage to you too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's very clear evidence that the more time that individuals spend on social media, the more likely they are to experience depression, anxiety, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, self-harm, cyberbullying, sexploitation. I mean, the list really is endless. And the medium has been engineered to be addictive. And part of what makes it addictive is the algorithm that feeds ever more extreme content in the form of extreme violence, extreme outrage, extreme hatred. What's happened is that we're no longer getting content because the content is being usurped by the medium itself, which is so reinforcing that people are staying on it much longer than is healthy for them, and far beyond the point when they're actually getting any valuable content or learning or even social connection, which is the nominal intention of social media.
Do you believe that the social media problem that we have has risen to the level of disorder, that you have a social disorder if you're addicted to the net?
I mean, what I see in clinical care and what the research shows is that much of the many of the mental health issues, which are growing now, especially among young people, are related to excessive use of social media, and that this kind of polarization and extremism and normalization of deviant behavior is contributed to by social media.
Okay, so let's get specific. So we got this guy in D.C., and he had no shot, pardon a stupid pun, he had no chance to get to the president of the United States, because I was there. And you had to go down an escalator, and the escalator was man, top, and bottom, and he did not have any chance of getting into that room and assassinating the president of the United States. Yet, he gave up his entire life, wrote a stupid manifesto that actually quotes, as I said, from social media postings and from the Jimmy Kimmels of the world. He actually takes their lines in justifying what he's trying to do, but he was willing to give up his entire life. I mean, he's never going to get out of prison for, I don't know, a fantasy? I don't know what it is. Is it he's such a big hater, he compelled to do it? You know, I'm a rational guy, a linear guy. I'm not going to, you knew you couldn't do it. Why did you even bother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I as a psychiatrist, I can't make a diagnosis on somebody I haven't directly examined. But I think what is very common is that somebody who starts out with a mental health disorder or is mentally fragile or is traumatized or in some kind of emotional distress, goes on to a social media platform for distraction, for comfort, for like-minded thinkers, and can very quickly get caught in this echo chamber where delusional beliefs, that is, beliefs that are not consistent with reality, are validated in this echo chamber on social media, thereby accelerating the mental health condition such that, individuals then act out in ways that are hurtful to others, hurtful to themselves, and simply not rational because they're not operating with reality testing. I mean, any of us caught in the echo chamber of our own thoughts would be vulnerable to distortion and delusion. Part of the way that we maintain clarity is by getting real feedback from the people around us. Say, hey, that's crazy. Or why are you thinking like that? Or those are not our values, or whatever it is. But people who are not connected to other people in real life, who give them some kind of real feedback and curb these sorts of, let's say, mentally unwell tendencies, but rather go into the echo chamber of social media and have those validated, that's where I think you get the escalation of these distorted, irrational thoughts that then lead to irrational behaviors.
So final question. So many unstable, violent people with the tendency to violence are getting worse because they're using social media. Do I have that right?
That is the concern. The people most vulnerable to being harmed by social media are people who themselves are mentally unwell to begin with. And that is, their engagement with social media actually makes their mental health disorder worse.
Would you put the haters on television in the same category?
What I think is happening with, let's say, haters on television is that when we experience an emotion at the same time that many other people are experiencing an emotion, whether it's joy or outrage or hatred, that is highly reinforcing for our mammalian brains. That releases dopamine in the reward pathway. It feels good. So I think people are having this experience of collective rage and outrage online, which simply feels good, independent of whether or not the nominal reason for their outrage is justified. So it's kind of an acceleration loop. And I think people can genuinely find comfort and reinforcement in that collective outrage, such that, again, they lose touch with their own values, decency, with basic civil
there's
civility.
no restraint. So a guy like Kimmel brings comfort to people who hate Trump anyway, and then a few of them act out on that. I'm not going to blame Jimmy Kimmel for what happened on Saturday or the other two assassination attempts. That would be unfair. But he is a hater, and he is contributing to this. So, Doctor, thanks very much. We learned a lot. The book is the official Dopamine Nation workbook. You might want to check it out and get up to speed on how the social media is affecting this country. Appreciate it, Doc.